The year is 1914, and I'm here with Borgia Hectic, 2 months after the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. So how are you doing today?
Well, I'm in prison, but I'm assuming you want to hear about the day of Archduke Ferdinand's death.
That is correct. So can you summarize that day for me?
Yes, so when Francis Ferdinand and his retinue drove from the station, they were allowed to pass through our first set two conspirators because the motor cars were driving too fast to make an attempt feasible. And then they were in a crowd with many Serbians, so throwing a grenade would have killed many innocent people. When Francis's car passed Grabnovich, the compositor, he threw his grenade and it hit the side of the car, but Francis Ferdinand, with presence of mind, threw himself back and was uninjured, although several of the officers riding with him were greatly injured. And the cars sped to the town hall, and the rest of us conspirators, we didn't want to interfere with him. So then after the reception in the town hall, General Pocherek, the Austrian commander, pleaded with Francis Ferdinand to leave the city as it was seething with rebellion, which he was correct in assuming. So the Archduke was persuaded to drive the shortest way out of the city and to go quickly. So luckily, the road to the maneuvers was shaped like the letter V, making a sharp turn at the bridge over the river Miglaka. Francis Ferdinand's car could go fast enough until it reached this spot, but here it was forced to slow down for the turn. And this is where my deceased partner, Princip, had taken his stand. As the car came abreast, he stepped forward from the curb, drew his automatic pistol from his coat, and fired 2 shots. The first struck the wife of the Archduke, the Archduchess Sophia, in the abdomen. She was an expectant mother, and unfortunately she died instantly. The second bullet struck
You think that's unfortunate?
Yes, because our plan was not to kill Archduchess Sophia. We were only looking to hurt the Archduke.
Oh, I understand. So, what was your master plan overall? Like, did you plan for him to drive through that?
Well, our master plan was to get the Archduke much before he even talked in the town hall. But we had to wait till then where we were lucky enough to get off a shot.
I understand. So what was the purpose of the assassination? Why did you do it?
So the purpose of this assassination was to kind of strike back against definitive rulers such as Archduke Ferdinand. And, that's really what kind of drove us.
So what effect did you think the assassination, if it went through, which it obviously did, what did you think would happen?
So I knew that our actions would really pay off, and I think it was best said by my, as I said previously, deceased partner, Princip. He said that that day our actions would serve as a torch to light the path for our people to freedom.
In the First World War, there were 2 sides. One side was the Central Powers. The Central Powers included Germany, who brought with them 11 million soldiers, Austria and Hungary, who had 7.8 million soldiers, the Ottoman Empire, who had 2.85 million soldiers, and then Bulgaria, who had 1.2 million soldiers. With all the Central Powers, they had a total of 22,850,000 troops. On the other side were the Allied Powers. The Allied Powers included of USA, who had 4,743,826 troops, Belgium, who had 267,000 troops, the British Empire, bringing 8,904,467 troops, France with 8.41 million troops, Greece with 230,000 troops, Italy with 5,615,000 troops, Japan bringing 800,000 troops, Russia with 12 million troops, and then Serbia with 707,343 troops. This total adds up to 42,542,802 troops for the Allied powers.
So it's early September, and I'm in Belgium right now. And excuse me, sir, can I talk to you for a second?
Yes, ma'am, I only have a few minutes.
So I would like to ask you, you're a part of the rebel cause, right?
Yes.
Now, can you explain your your involvement?
Yes. So our people in Belgium believe that we were going to stay neutral throughout this war, and that was our complete intention. And when Germany asked us to kind of let them come through and kind of use us to facilitate them, we said no. And they then invaded our country. And now because of this, we are rebelling. And now Germany is going to have to not only deal with us soldiers in Belgium, but now Britain as well.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. So now I'm in Germany. I just got back from Belgium, and I have here with me a German soldier.
Hello?
Can you explain to me what the Schlieffen Plan is?
Yes, the Schlieffen Plan is the German plan created by our almighty German Chief of Staff, Alfred von Schlieffen. And basically, it's sort of an attack on both the Eastern Front in Russia and the Western Front in France. So our plan is to send minimal soldiers out to the Eastern Front to kind of keep Russia at a stalemate, and then go to the Western Front through Belgium and attack France where they would really least expect it.
I've begun gathering journal evidence from diaries and letters from places like Italy and Russia. I'll start to read some of these to you. I find them to be quite fascinating, actually. The one from Russia is written by a girl named Maria, and it reads, "It's January 1st of 1916 in Russia. It's cold. I'm cold. We're all cold. It's been over a year since the Ottoman Empire abandoned its neutral position towards the war, and it feels like an eternity. Now the Ottoman Empire is another belligerent. Towards us. The Sultan had declared a military jihad against my country and my allies, France and Britain, and we are coming to realize exactly what a threat they pose. Father says that he doesn't understand why they had to go to war with us. That's all he talks about lately. It's impossible for anyone to talk about anything other than the war, save, perhaps, how hungry they are, but that also relates back to the war. Dardanelles is still blocked, and we can't reach our allies for help. The Royal Navy has been trying to reach us since last February, but they haven't been able to fight through the Dardanelles. Military authorities sent an expeditionary force to the Gallipoli Peninsula, but that was 10 months ago, and our hopes are lying low. I try to have hope, but everything seems grim and pointless now. Countless have died. Casualties on our side are high, and it's hard to see the point in fighting anymore. Brother is still out in the Caucasus Mountains, and I haven't heard from him in months. I can't help but wonder where he is and in what condition. From what he last told me, the Armenians had begun to help the army against the Turks. They felt restricted and inferior due to their religion, I suppose. But then the Ottomans decided to start deporting them, and they're dying off, like the rest of us are, but only faster. I want Brother to write me back. I'm worried for him, for all of us.
In the First World War, many people were involved, and with a lot of people came a lot of inventions. Perhaps the most influential of them all was trench warfare. Trench warfare is a type of land warfare using occupied fighting lines consisting largely of trenches in which troops are significantly protected from the enemy's small arms fire and are substantially sheltered from the artillery. The most famous use of trench warfare thus far is on the Western Front and has become the most popular source of stalemate in this war. Trenches were much different depending on which side of the war you were on. In the Central Powers, the trenches were typically loaded with electricity and water, and they planned to be in these trenches for long periods of time. For the Allied powers, trenches were poorly built and they were made quickly because they thought that they would not spend much time. But in the end, the Central Powers were much more prepared.
Among new technology, poison gas was probably the crudest. A simple change in wind, and you could kill your own men. Initially, gas was used to be thrown on the front lines of enemy trenches, only to be set off when the wind was favorable. But as the war progressed, poison gas was put into shells to be shot behind enemy lines. These hellspawns of grenades were made of chlorine and phosgene gases and ripped at the air in the victim's lungs. And those were the grenades you prayed for, because mustard gas was the bitch that your gas mask couldn't help you with. Mustard gas attacked the moist areas of your skin, including your armpits, eyes, and groin. This left the victim with excruciating pain that would last what felt like an eternity. This unjust warfare was first used by surprise, the Germans. By the end of the war, 1 in every 4 shells was filled with gas. Arthur MP was an American living in New Jersey when war consumed Europe in 1914. He was one of many enraged by the sinking of the Lusitania and loss of lives of American passengers. He expected to join an American army to combat the Germans. When America did not immediately declare war, MP boarded a ship to England, enlisted in the British Army. And this was, of course, a violation of our neutrality law, but no one seemed to mind. And he was soon manning a trench on the front lines. Now, this is a letter from this war hero who broke neutrality laws just to get into the fight. We had a new man at the periscope on this afternoon in question. I was sitting on the fire step cleaning my rifle when he called out to me, "There's a sort of greenish-yellow cloud rolling among the ground in front. It's coming." But I waited for no more. Grabbing my bayonet, which was detached from the rifle, I gave the alarm by banging an empty shell case, which was hanging near the periscope. At the same instant, gongs started ringing down the trench, the signal for Tommy to don his respirator, or smoke helmet as we call it. Gas travels quietly, so you must not lose any time. You generally have about 18 or 20 seconds in which to adjust your gas helmet. A gas helmet is made of cloth treated with chemicals. There are 2 windows or glass eyes in it through which you can see. Inside there is a rubber cover through the cloth helmet. It's neutralized by the action of the chemicals. The foul air is exhaled through the tube in the mouth, this tube being so constructed that it prevents the inhaling of the outside air or gas. One helmet is good for 5 hours of the strongest gas. Each Tommy carries 2 of them slung around his shoulder in a waterproof canvas bag. He must wear this bag at all times, even while sleeping. To change the defective helmet, you take out the new one, hold your breath, pull the old one off, placing the new one over your head, tucking in the loose ends under the collar of your tunic. For a minute, pandemonium reigned in our trench. Adjusting their helmets, bombers running here and there, and men turning out of the dugouts with fixed bayonets to man the fire step. Reinforcements were pouring out of the communication trenches. Our gun's crew was busy mounting the machine gun on the parapet and bringing up extra ammunition from the dugout. As you can see, Tommy and Arthur were great heroes. Prior to World War I, prevailing naval opinion considered the submarine an ineffective weapon for blockading an enemy country. Submarines were filled with exposed piping and crammed with machinery. They had no space to take prisoners aboard. Additionally, the submarines could never carry enough sailors to provide crews to man captured ships. Therefore, the submarine was considered a useless weapon against civilian shipping. In February 1915, the German government announced its solution to the problem: unrestricted submarine warfare. The Germans realized they didn't have to capture a merchant ship, they just had to sink it, crew, and everything. They declared a war zone around the British Isles within which they would sink any Allied merchant vessel on sight. 50 ships were hit between that February and September of the same year. This German tactic of U-boats was furthermore banned, but in February 1917, with U-boats now available to Germany in quantity, They again declared their policy of unrestricted submarine warfare. This time not only Allied, but neutral ships, such as those of the U.S., would be sunk on sight. It was a big gamble. The Germans knew it would bring America into the war, but they reasoned that they could starve the Brits out first. It was a gamble they almost won. By April, when America declared war, Britain was almost on its knees. Over 1,030 merchant ships had been sunk, and Britain was only 6 weeks away from starvation. The introduction of the escorted convoy helped save the day. Ships lost dropped dramatically, and the supply route from America to Britain began to flow again.
The year is 1918. Hello. I'm glad you were able to be here with us. Can you start by telling us what your name is?
My name is Peter.
Where do you live, Peter?
I am from Petrograd, Russia.
Can you tell us about your family?
I have none.
My sincerest condolences. How do you feel right now?
Numb, I guess.
About the war?
About everything.
Do you participate in the riots?
I have. I know many people that do.
Would you mind telling us why?
Why? You want to know why? There are many reasons why. Because of the war defeats, because of the hunger, because of the economic instability, because of the social divisions, because of the monarchy, because of the corruption within the monarchy. These are all the reasons why.
Tell us about your czar, Peter.
Nicholas II. He's an idiot. He's weak. He doesn't know how to rule a country or govern, let alone be a commander-in-chief. He's been a terrible leader ever since he was crowned. Even before then, actually. Did you know that at his coronation, nearly 1,400 people died? My aunt was one of them. My cousins were part of the other 1,000, and some who were injured.
I'm sorry to hear about that.
Well, it happened a long time ago. Just be sorry that that fool is still alive. He deserves to die.
Can I ask you how you feel about the rest of government?
Well, his wife is another fool as well. A German fool.
Tell us about the leadership going on in Russia.
There is no leadership. I told you that. Government doesn't do or know anything.
How about Vladimir Lenin?
Vladimir Lenin pulled us out of the war with the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. And I guess you could say that that's the best leadership Russia has seen in a while. Either that or Nicholas's abdication, but I still think that he should die.
So, Lenin's decision to pull Russia out of the war is wise?
Of course it is. Do you know how Russia was before? I mean, look at Russia now. We're a mess.
What about for the other countries, your allies?
What does that matter? Our country is in shambles. This war really, really hurt us. We need to focus on us now. We already helped them.
Don't you think the Central Powers will have the chance to break through and end the war triumphantly?
I guess so. But we can handle their we can't handle their problems anymore. We already have tons of our own. They can figure something out.
I understand. Thank you, Peter. We're slowly working to pull the European colonies into the war. We will welcome as many more helping people as we can. From them, we will be able to gather men for troops, laborers for production, and supplies for all of us. I don't think any of the colonies necessarily want to fight. Some are more reluctant than others. I found 2 letters written by a man who lives in Italy, and the letters are written exactly 1 year apart from each other, and they read, "The year is 1916, and last year, Italy had gladly accepted the deal with the Allies. In a treaty unbeknownst to others, the Allies had promised to give us some of Austria-Hungary's territory in exchange for our support in the war, and thus we declared war on Germany and Austria-Hungary. Some people say that it's wrong that we're doing this since we used to be in a triple alliance with both countries, but now we're fighting against them. It's been a year of fighting Austrians, and I'm worried it will only get worse." The year is 1917, and my predictions came true. War isn't good for anyone, not really. It's November, and we are still reeling from the attack at Caporetto and Isonzo. We are still in disarray, and I think it will take us years to recover. Hopefully, the Allies will help us stop the Central Powers. They're getting closer and closer to Italy by the minute. Whilst walking through an abandoned city, I found this letter in the dirt. It's from a citizen of Austria-Hungary, and it reads, "The war has changed all of us. That's obvious. We've been defeated, and it hurts like no pain anyone could ever imagine, unless he felt it in himself. We've lost our husbands, our brothers, our sons, our women, and more to this war. Government, society, cities, even religion seems to have gone to ruin and rubble, and yet the Allies won't stop, as if we weren't in bad condition already. My home, Austria-Hungary, has collapsed. The Central Powers are in wreckage. It feels like we're just dying off, one by one, until there's nothing left. I'm not even sure that anybody has won this war. I know we definitely haven't." I'm here with a woman from the United States. So, from your perspective, how would you summarize the United States entry?
Here's how it went. President Wilson asked for a declaration of war against Germany in order to make the world safe for democracy, and Congress approved. So America joined the fight that has been crushing countries for the past 4 years. The president had denounced Germany earlier about Germany's resume into their brutal submarine warfare, of which they had ceased after the sinking of the Lusitania under our request. Furthermore, the president caught word of Germany's proposal to Mexico. If they supported Germany, Germany would help them reconquer their lost land from us, that being the territories in New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona, which rightfully belong to us. I actually have a copy of the telegram if you would like to read it.
Yes, I would very much appreciate that. Would you read it?
"We intend to begin on the 1st of February unrestricted submarine warfare. We shall endeavor in spite of this to keep the United States of America neutral. In the event of this not succeeding, we make Mexico a proposal of alliance on the following basis: make war together, make peace together, generous financial support, and an understanding on our part that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territory in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The settlement in detail is left to you. You will inform the President of the above most secretly as soon as the outbreak of war with the United States of America is certain, and add the suggestion that he should, on his own initiative, invite Japan to immediate adherence and at the same time mediate between Japan and ourselves. Please call the President's attention to the fact that the ruthless employment of our submarines now offers the prospect of compelling England in a few months to make peace." After this, Wilson realized war was inevitable, but agonized over the decision for what it might do to the spirit of the nation. He feared war would change America forever, making her tougher, less humane. Once lead these people into war, and they'll forget there ever was such a thing as tolerance. The spirit of ruthless brutality will enter into the very fiber of our national life. Every man who refused to conform would have to pay the penalty. But what else could he do? I strongly support his decisions. I support them wholeheartedly.
Thank you. It's December of 1918, and I'm here at a hospital in the outskirts of Germany. Sir, would you mind if I interviewed you?
Sure. I might not be able to walk, but I can think straight.
How old are you?
15 years old.
And you are a recruit for the German army?
Yes.
What's your name?
My name is Christoph.
Christoph? You're a bit young, aren't you?
I guess so.
Do your parents know that you're here? Like, do your generals know how old you are?
Yeah, they recruited me. Men that are 15 are eligible to serve.
Oh. Well, how do you feel?
Well, my head and my chest hurt badly, and I'm hungry. But it's nothing I can't deal with. Nothing that's unusual around here.
I'm sorry you say that.
Me too, but it's the truth.
I see. Would you mind explaining how you feel about the defeat?
Well, you see, we wanted to get a victory in before the Americans arrived. We knew they would be fresh and lively. We didn't want that, so in March we launched a great offensive, and it worked. The Allies were pushed back 40 miles. It was great, although we were exhausted afterwards, really exhausted.
Of course, that's reasonable.
And then they came in, thousands and thousands of them. The American troops, I mean. They pushed us back into France and Belgium. It was brutal. That was when I got shot, which landed me here. At some point afterwards, the general told the Kaiser that there was no hope of winning, although Wilhelm II ended up fleeing into exile soon after. The new government stepped in and sought armistice with the Allies.
I understand. Thank you, Christoph. I really appreciate your time and words. Get well soon. I'm so glad you were able to speak with us today, Miss Elizabeth.
Why, of course. I'm glad to.
I understand you used to work for Miss Edith Cavell. Could you tell us about her?
Yes, I met her when I was a young woman. We were both English nurses working at the same hospital in Belgium. She was an interesting woman, headstrong and brave, very religious. That's why she was so propelled to help everyone she could. I wish I had the courage she had. It's hard seeing soldiers like that in the condition that some of them were in. It still haunts my dreams. You wouldn't believe what I saw. But Edith, she could handle it all and more. No matter which side of the soldier was on, what condition he was in. She even helped some Allied soldiers escape. A lot, actually. Over 100, maybe even 200. But she was arrested for trying to help them. She was spying like usual, I think. That's when they caught her. It was 1915. She died on October 12th of 1915. She was accused of treason and sentenced to death. I wanted to stop it. So many of us tried, pleaded for mercy, but they wouldn't let her go, and she was shot by a German firing squad. Her last words were, "Standing as I do in view of God and eternity, I realize that patriotism is not enough. I must have no hatred or bitterness toward anyone." I wish I could talk to her now. I miss her every day. Then I could tell her about the end of the war and how all of us women took over jobs to keep the economy from collapsing. I could tell her about my friend who joined the women's branch of the armed forces. Edith would never have done that. She worked hard around the clock tending to men's wounds, stopping hemorrhages, replacing intestines, stitching cuts. That's what she did best. It was gruesome, but it gave her a sense of fulfillment and meaning that she was helping others. I wish I could tell her how our involvement in the war has pushed for women's suffrage in different countries. She'd really like that, but I suppose she already knows. She's in heaven looking down at us now.
The war to end war, or so they called it, has really just ended lives and destroyed countries. The luckiest to leave this war is probably the United States, and maybe Britain after that. But there are deep emotional, societal, governmental, and economic wounds for all of us to share, some more than others. Nevertheless, millions of soldiers are deceased, and even more so, are injured. 1918 hit us hard with a fatal pandemic of influenza that has infected us worldwide, and people are dropping dead as if it were rain in April. The path from France to Russia is devastated to the point of wreckage. The cost of reconstruction and the war burdens our everyday mind, along with malnutrition, defeat, and loss. Government is in shambles in Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire most distinctively. Colonial empires have lost faith as well. The Paris Peace Conference would bring about peace at last, or so they said. But how can peace come after anything as disastrous as this? The three main leaders hold conflicting views, but they have come to an agreement. It's July now, 1919. Last month, the Allies forced the new German Republic to sign the Treaty of Versailles, placing the blame solely on them. It's horrifying, but people need a finger to point. Germany was the figure of which everyone's fingers were pointing to. Vast reparation payments were placed on the German economy, and it's already in turmoil. These reparations will cover the costs of the destruction of war and the pensions of the soldiers and their widows or families. There are more weakening parts of the treaty as well. The list goes on. For example, the German military has been shrunken severely, along with Germany's territory by hundreds of square miles. I don't know for sure, but I know it's a lot. Germany has also lost many of its overseas colonies, and the Germans who lived in other countries have returned to their devastated country. Germany didn't want to sign a treaty, but they had no choice.